Hello?
I love you.
I think you laid it on a teensy bit thick there, old pal.
I'm starting to see a trend here. The brand new Acura Integra Type S has finally been fully revealed. Yeah, I'm a little late to the party when it comes to talking about this car. I wanted to give it a little bit of time to let the hype die down a little bit and then talk about it. And it's got one big problem, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But as many of you guys know, I was not a fan of the Integra when it first came out. Like at all. So if you want a quick recap of what I thought about the Integra unveil last year, here's what I said. Yes, the Integra had a 4-door, but the DC2 is the one we all remember. And with their unveil, they compared it to the legacy of the DC2, which is kind of what my main problem was. I was like, wait, that car looks nothing like it. It doesn't have the same philosophy of it, yet you're claiming it's like furthering the legacy of the DC2. And I was like, no. Also, fan renderings did not help the case of this car. Out of almost sheer coincidence, a month or two before, these fan renderings of what an Integra could look like modernized showed up on the internet everywhere. It got a lot of people excited about it, and then they got the 4-door thing. So needless to say, people got their hopes up for a fake car that didn't exist. I also thought if they're going in a different direction with the Integra, I thought Acura should take notes from the Dodge Charger, which was a muscle car turned into a 4-door atrocity. At least everybody thought so when it first came out. But instead of comparing the Charger to the old one, they just said, hey, this is how it is. It's a 4-door now. This is how it's gonna be. SLT! And now you probably think of this as the Dodge Charger now, and not the old muscle car. Times change perspectives and they change things, as long as you don't say it's like the old thing. I also thought the front of the Integra was too similar to its other models in the Acura lineup. I thought the design language was kind of boring and it just shared the same thing with all the other cars. To the untrained eye, it looks like the ILX in the front and the TLX Type S in the front. I know they're different, but they're extremely similar. And I also thought that the rear end looked like a 4-door Genesis coupe with those taillights, which was pretty harsh on my part. At the end of the day, as an Integra owner myself, I was just bummed about the car. And I even did a podcast basically with other Integra owners to get their opinion. And in the enthusiast community, nobody seemed to like it. It did not resonate with a lot of people. To the normal average person, yeah, it's a nice car. The Integra is a nice car to drive around. And that was it. All right, if you're new here, we're all caught up about the Integra. In my last video about the Integra Type S, it was when it had the camo on it. And it made me wonder how different the car was gonna look with the camo stripped off. And it seemed really promising, especially after I drove the new Civic Type R. But it didn't mean that I was gonna be like, oh yeah, it's automatically good. The Integra Type S with the camo off, what do I think about it? I think they really fixed the rear end of this car overall. The color contrast is a bold choice, and it fixes a lot of the blandness that I thought the original one had. It just didn't have any character. It was just a 4-door Acura. And if the Type S was the Integra that initially came out the door, I probably would have given it a pass. I think it has character. I think it looks pretty cool. I think it just has more imagination behind it. It seems a lot more like a spiritual successor to, say, the old 4-door Integra. It makes more sense. Because even the base model Integras still felt kind of sporty. The small spoiler on the back is a really nice touch, and the front end definitely has a little bit more personality with the ducts and grills that they've added with color contrast as well. It's not a bad looking car. I think they really fixed this thing. The rear end is still my favorite, but the front end, they did a lot of good stuff with it. The motor is similar to the Type R engine. It makes 320 horsepower, which is 5 more than the Type R. which is more than enough for a front-wheel drive production car. And best of all, it still has a 6-speed manual gearbox. And Honda really knows how to build a gearbox and knows how to build a really good shifter, so I'm not worried about that at all. So I'm sure you're asking, but David, if all of this seems so positive, then what's the problem? You know what I'm gonna say. I think you know what I'm gonna say. It's the price. It's too expensive. This just keeps happening over and over again with so many cars. Yes, it is nicer than the Type R, but the Type R is already expensive. And you and I both know, with a complete dealer markup issue across all brands, not just Honda and Acura, you and I both know that the starting price of $51,995 is not gonna happen. We know that it is gonna be even more expensive. And starting at $51,000, oh my God, the amount of options you have to purchase if that is your budget. You have an amazing smorgasbord of cars to choose from. And a lot of the times, cars like this get overshadowed by its competition in this segment. In the luxury car segment, it's so competitive because people are paying a lot of money. And they're gonna say, do I buy the Acura or do I buy that really nice luxury German sedan, sometimes for cheaper? A good example is like the Alfa Romeo Giulia I just reviewed. It's a fantastic car to drive. It makes 500 plus horsepower. And you know, the Quadrifoglio is a beast, but it's overshadowed by everybody else. And that's what I'm really worried about the Integra Type S, because the Type R is already expensive. Then you're adding $7,000 before dealer markup. How is that gonna work in their favor? I just don't get it. And don't get me wrong, the Integra Type S comes with heated seats and a 16 speaker sound system, but it just gives me this weird feeling that it's just gonna be overlooked, and it's sad. I really hope it doesn't fall into the same trap as, say, the Nissan Z, which the Nissan Z, when I finally got to drive it, in my opinion, was way too much money for what you got. And unfortunately, especially after I drove the manual Mark V Supra, that was a game changer in perspective because it was so much more car than the Z, and it was the same price as the top trim model Z. So that's where I was like, yeah, this isn't good. With the Type R already being expensive, it has put Acura in a lose-lose situation in many ways, because the Integra was always the luxury car compared to like the Civic. And if you price them the same, which you can't do, what do? Yeah, you have to make it premium. You have to make it more expensive to make it look like it's the better car to buy over the Type R. In a lot of ways, we don't know how much better it is to the Type R at this moment. Why wouldn't somebody just go buy the Type R if it's 5 horsepower less and it drives fairly the same? Because we don't know yet. Maybe I'll know once I drive it. And Acura, if you're watching, I don't hate you. I'm rooting for you. It's just, this makes me sad. There are so many options at this price range. It would be so hard to choose. I mean, you could get an M235i, you could get a lot of different cars. By the way, before I forget, what would you buy for $51,000? Put it down in the comment section below. I would love to start a conversation of the used market, the new market. I want to see what everybody's taste and choices are, so I'd love to hear about that. So that was my quick 2 cents about the new Type S. What do you guys think about the car now that it's been fully unveiled? I think the car looks good. I think they improved it the very best they could with the subtle changes, and it's amazing what subtle design changes do for a car. And before we go, a couple of things. My detail brand, Patterson Car Care, has a completely new look. We have original formulas made right here in the USA, and if you'd like to give us a try, there are some samples on the website. So link in the description below at pattersoncarcare.com. And at the same time, if you're interested, I highly recommend going back and watching my last video that's all about me getting my racing license. So if you want to know how you can get your wheel-to-wheel racing license, I break down the entire experience. I drove an open air Radical SR1 to get my license that revs to 10,000 RPM and is Hayabusa powered. It was a really crazy time, and I highly recommend you check it out. And on that note, guys, I typically upload on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, and I will see you guys next time. And take it easy. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.